Howdy, all you zombie fans. Welcome back to another great, exciting episode on The Zurvivalist. I am your host, Matt Jarbo, here today with Julianne. Now, Julianne, you are an author of a new book called Days With The Undead. Can you tell us a bit about that?
It is a book that I wrote sort of on an ongoing basis. You can find the story online at dayswiththeundead.com. But the book in and of itself is a small portion of that with added material to make it a little bit more, I guess, desirable for the people that have already followed the story.
Sure, like extra little nuggets of information.
You know, I've expanded upon some scenes, like put in some more background, so it gives sort of a better idea. Because as I'm writing as I go along, there are things that I wished I had put in, but due to time constraints and wanting to get it on the internet, you know, I didn't put them in, or I didn't explain things as well as what I'd wanted to at the time. And once you put it out there, it becomes, you know, a day, then you can't really go back and edit it because people have already read it.
Very true. Very true.
You know, you want to make sure that you get that story as much out there as you possibly can, but there are things that, you know, I mean, I'm human, I'm going to miss them.
Sure.
So this is my opportunity to go back and make sure that all of these things were now added in, and it was what I wanted initially to put out there.
Great. So can you just give us a quick, for all of our listeners at home, give us a quick overview of the story?
Without giving too much away, it's a story of survival. So there are 5 people that set out once the zombie apocalypse happens in their hometown. And, you know, there's a member of their group that was, you know, right at ground zero when it happened. And then there's just one that was a little bit closer and different kinds of things. So it just talks about their struggle, you know, getting out of Toronto and then into wherever they think is safe, pretty much. I mean, they go on quite the journey. I mean, they you know, travel west trying to get out of Canada because I guess they, you know, in the story they figure that it's the best way for them to go would be to go south. So that's what they do. So they go west and they go south because they have to get into the U.S. somewhere. And there's not really a lot of places in southern Ontario to do that safely. You know, I mean, there are the bridges and whatnot, but those are the first things that become clogged with people trying to leave. So, you know, it's just all about them trying to get themselves out of Canada and then trying to find a safe place. And they figured because it started where it started, that going south and getting as far away as possible would probably be their best option because, you know, like everyone figures, the military or somebody's going to come in and they're going to quash this.
Sure.
You know, even though they're realistic and realize, you know, and knowing that that's probably not what is going to happen, that's what they still hoped.
Okay.
So it follows their, you know, day by day journey and struggle and the things that they see as they try just to escape the oncoming tide of the undead.
Sounds very intriguing. I'll have to read. I actually just heard about this the other day, so I haven't had a chance to sit down and read it yet, but I'm definitely going to. And the book, it comes out on just a few days from now, right?
Yeah, it comes out the 29th of February. It will be released in both ebook format and in trade paperback. So my fingers are crossed that a lot more people buy the actual paperback, but you know.
Of course. And where can the people go find the book, like in paperback?
Yeah, they'll be in paperback. They can find it on Amazon in paperback. They can also find it in my on my Create Space store page. And then eventually, after it gets through different things within Smashwords, it'll go to the Barnes & Noble. It'll go to the Barnes & Noble page, which will offer it both in the ebook format and in a trade paperback.
Awesome. And
so
you're... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying that, you know, there are ways to get it. It's just some of them depend on how long it takes to get into the system.
Sure.
Like the Barnes & Noble will be a little bit longer in happening because it has to go through premium status in Smashwords. So, and then I'm hoping that, you know, we can get it into libraries and regular independent bookstores. Just matters on how much buzz there is and how much it sells, I guess. Which I'm hoping is a lot. Fingers crossed.
Well, no, it sounds like a very, very cool concept. I'm looking forward to reading it. And you're working with Sirens Call Publications?
Yes, I am.
Great. And they seem like they're like a pretty solid group of people. So hopefully they'll get you they'll get you out there.
Yeah, I mean they're definitely what they produce is definitely high quality. They know exactly what it is that they're talking about when it comes to indie publishing, because the three of them are indie publishers themselves. They're indie authors themselves. So they understand, the different, I guess, intricacies behind the scenes that have to happen to be an independent publisher. I mean, they're not one of the big six. Like, let's not, make them out to be bigger than they are. But it's a small press that's willing and, has the skill set to get independent authors out there and get them, into a place where they can succeed both for themselves and then for Sirens Publication.
Exactly. Okay, so let's get right into the episode here, because being a zombie author, I definitely want to hear your take on how you would outwit and outlast the undead. So I'm just going to ask a question: how would you survive a zombie outbreak?
To be perfectly honest, there is that possibility that I will not survive because of the fact that I live in Toronto, and Toronto, first of all, the city of Toronto has about 2.5 million people. And then the GTA, which is the Greater Toronto Area, which is all like the suburbs and urban sprawl that sort of spreads out from Toronto, has another like 7.5 million people. So my best bet would be the minute I hear something happening, I've got to get out. If I stay in the city, I'm doomed because you'll never be able to get out of the streets. You'll never be able to get out of all the urban sprawl. I mean, the possibility does exist. But
I guess it all really depends on how far, into like, I've never been to Toronto. My only experience with Canada is like, Victoria, on Vancouver Island. So with the city itself, like, is there a way to, where you're located in the city, are you near major freeways? Is there like a way for you to kind of slip out unnoticed? Or are you kind of smack dab in the center and like what would be almost like ground zero?
Really good question. There are ways to get out, obviously. There's 401, which is our big highway. It's our big, as you call them freeways, we call them highways. But the thing is about 401 is the 401, apparently, according to studies, is the most highly used highway in all of North America. It's the one that has gridlock the most. So those are the roads that you would want to avoid if something like this were to happen, because you don't want to get stuck on the 401 between exits with an army of the undead just like coming towards you. That wouldn't be great. That would be definitely not optimal. As for getting out, where I live is pretty much smack dab in the middle. So I can get out of Toronto probably no problem. But it's getting out of the urban sprawl. And when I mean the actual how do I say it? The area that, Toronto and the GTA covers is so large that, you can travel for 2 hours from downtown Toronto and just barely get out of it.
Wow.
And that's taking into account that, that's when, like, with normal traffic patterns and whatnot, that's not taking into, account the panic that would be going on.
Well, I'm looking at a map of Toronto right now because I quickly just brought it up, and it looks like, yeah, you're right. The 401 goes all the way through east to west, but the 404 goes north to south. Would there be any way to get to possibly like Algonquin Island and then scoot across Lake Ontario down into the States?
That would be possible. If I were thinking to go to the States, I would probably go upwards and around, like towards Windsor, and cross over where they crossed over in the book. Because to me, there's a lot of people there. Everyone's going to head for. People will head for different types of islands because there are a lot of islands in the different lakes in the Great Lakes.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole 1,000 islands there, and people will head. If they can't get out north, they'll go south. They'll try to get onto Toronto Island. They'll try to get onto Algonquin Island. So, I mean, that just puts more people there, and if one person who's infected onto that island, and you're sunk, it's over.
No,
So,
very true.
I myself, I mean, I could try the 404, but we have, it's hard to explain because, I mean, you guys have your own gridlock and you have your freeways and stuff in the States, and everything, you get slowed down, but we can literally, in a matter of, a couple of seconds, be entirely gridlocked, and you just sit there.
Well, I live in Los Angeles. Trust me, I know all about gridlock. That's a common occurrence here. But let's say, okay, so let's say you're there, the outbreak happens, like what are your survival skills? Like, I mean, are you proficient in hunting, fishing? Can you live off the land? Or on something more than maybe like me would be, I'd be, great at eating like canned ravioli, as compared to like hunting and fishing, So like, what's your general skill set for survival?
I do a lot of walking. So I'm the kind of person that can walk long distances without getting tired, which is good because if you don't need to rest all the time and they're not letting them catch up. If I had to walk, I obviously prefer to have a car or something that moves faster than walking. I can live off the land. I can fish. I am trained. I can shoot a gun. However, I don't have a gun. So, I mean, I'd have to go and find one. But, I mean, I can do pretty much, I have pretty good aim,
Mm-hmm.
I know, but you'd like to think that in that moment, suddenly everything would clear and you'd be able to aim a whole lot better. But, I mean, I'd have to say, I'm pretty much, I could live off the land and whatnot, but I really hope it didn't come to that.
Well, no one ever hopes it would come to that. We definitely don't want that. But so you'd be able to survive essentially.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
would you
provide a whole big bunch of people?
Yeah, it just I mean, if you can. I mean, the great thing about zombies is they don't run, but they amass numbers. So if you can just kind of keep going, you should be able to get away. What about long-term survival? Like, where would you? I mean, let's kind of say, because when you write a zombie story like the one you've written, you do put yourself in there, and you do basically give away your plan, to an extent. And unfortunately, because I haven't read it, can't ask you those questions based on that. But like, what would be like the key thing you would do that you put into your story that you'd have your characters do? Like, or what did you learn that would help you survive better?
To keep going, no, stop.
Just keep moving?
Once you stop, I mean, because a lot of the time, I mean, with Days With The Undead, it's not just an action story. It's very much sort of that story that sort of happens behind the scenes of the action. A lot of it, because it's written in journal style.
Yeah.
A lot of it is the musings of the person, who is writing it, and they're also trying to reach out to the other people who may be out there reading it, because it's meant to be more of like an online journal. Even in the story, it's meant to be an online journal. So it's the people that they're trying to reach out to. So there's that whole aspect of the human factor that doesn't really weigh in a lot of times to different zombie stories. So, my biggest thing that I would do would certainly be to never stop moving. Because the minute that you stop moving, they're going to catch up.
Well, I mean, isn't it? But eventually, I mean, humans, we're no longer like a nomadic people. Like we really feel like we have to place roots. That's kind of what we're taught as children, is to like, get married, have a family, settle down. So, prolonged moving, do you really, do you see that, like, I mean, ever having an end? Would you find like a kind of like, what is it, the movie Far and Away? When they're racing and he's like, "This is our land," and I mean things like that. Would you, maybe not have an end goal, but would there be a point where you would just go, enough is enough? I need to like work here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there will be that need that you'll have to settle down somewhere in a place that you feel safe and try to sustain some sort of existence. But if a zombie apocalypse were to happen, I mean, you have to remember that all bets are off.
Yeah.
Everything that you've ever known pretty much has to be, thrown out the window in a sense. You can't think, okay, well, if I go 100 kilometers north, I'm going to be okay because I'll never get here. I mean, sure, staying in the city is really stupid because with the amount of people that are in the cities, once they all turn, they're all going to, they're going to feed off of each other, not necessarily, but they'll feed off the survivors that are left or whatever they can find. And then once they don't have a food source, they're going to move out. And they're not going to move out, necessarily in ways of just where the cities and towns are. No, they're going to follow roads. They're going to just follow fields. They're going to go into forests. I mean, they're going to move out in whatever pattern that they feel, not that they can feel, but whatever way that they end up going, they're going to go. They're not going to follow a pattern that is necessarily a pattern.
Nice.
So with you have to have that flexibility and adaptability within yourself to be able to go wherever you have to get away from them. Whether or not it's going, way up north and hope that, the cold climate will eventually freeze them before they get to you. That's what everyone thinks, but maybe that's not what happens. Because a body in constant motion who's not going to feel the cold is not going to slow. So there's that possibility that they don't freeze like we all assume they will.
Well, they would definitely slow down because, one thing I've noticed with a lot of zombie stories and even the one I'm writing is I try to add in, take into account, the effects of rigor mortis. Because that would regardless. But as I just learned the other day that rigor mortis works forwards, like fingertips, toes, goes in, and then it gets to a point after about 12 hours where then it just releases.
That's
so
right.
It's only it's only partial. It's such a slow time frame where eventually they'll be limber again. But yet again, we're talking zombies and not, physical corpses getting up and walking, because that would just be, I think it would be over in a day or a couple of years or something. But let's because we're definitely running low on time. We're having a really good episode here. I love it. But I guess let me just finish up with asking you, if you were bit, what would you do?
If I was bit, well, first of all, I'd start praying and pray that I was somebody that was somehow immune to the zombie virus. Then I would, I'm the kind of person that, I'm not going to hide it. If I was with a group of people, I wouldn't hide it. I would make sure that they knew that this is what was going on. And I would either take myself away from the group and, do myself in, or I would have, if I couldn't do it myself, if faced with that right then and there, I would, say, please, I don't want to become one of them. So just put me out of my misery now.
And that's probably the best method is just, don't hide it, own up to it. And then after that, everyone's going to be, you keep the safety of the group ahead of, your own personal safety. So that's definitely a solid answer. But thank you very much, Julianne, for being on the show. Really had a lot of fun talking to you.
Thank you. It was great fun.
And sorry, go ahead.
I always enjoy talking about zombies. No,
zombies are a blast because they're always. I like to look at it from the George Romero perspective of them being more social commentary, than just hordes of corpses people get to shoot. Which is probably why I like Walking Dead more than most people. But for all of you guys listening at home, you guys can definitely pick up the book on Amazon. Coming out on the 25th. So Days With The Undead, book 1 will be out. And
29th way.
The 29th. So on Leap Year Day, you guys can get that. Look on the show notes. You'll be able to find the link to the website to where you guys can find more information. And be sure to, I'll also link your Twitter account on there if people want to follow you.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll do all that good, happy, fun stuff. And for all you guys listening at home, you can find more Zurvivalist on Zurvivalist.com or on iTunes or on Stitcher or on Zune or on YouTube. Just Google it. We're there. Or kzomradio.com. My name is Matt Jarbo. I'll see you guys next week on another episode of The Zurvivalist. Have a great one.